Booyakasha, Turtle fans! Double RPG is back with my review of Episode 7 on the 2012 Ninja Turtles cartoon on Nickelodeon. Last week, you noticed in my thoughts on the subpar dynamic between Donnie and April were extremely lame and very lukewarm. Does this episode do a complete reversal in making it a bit more enjoyable? Speaking of which, this episode involves a mutated monkey and psychic powers through the brain. That's a mystery. Well, not really. However, if it was an episode that was left unfinished on that type of subplot, then yeah, it would be. Either way, here's my review on the current episode, Monkey Brains. At the sewer lair, Donnie and Mikey are doing some Sayonagi training to capitalize on foes that tend to use that ability on them, but Mikey does some insane stunts that Donnie finds questionable and out of place for his brother to do something like that. Mikey says that Don is thinking too hard, and Master Splinter agrees as over-strategizing can stale one's intent to quickly react. Thus, Donnie gets a hilarious example from Splinter that the move that he was using on a student was not even Sayonagi at all. Later on, Donatello creates a chart to help him maximize his chances of hanging out with April based on what possible outcomes may occur from her answers to which Leo, Raph, and Mikey find very weird. Donnie tries to show an example when April comes in with a discovery that may prove useful in trying to track down the Krang. The news comes in that a famed neuroscientist named Dr. Tyler Rockwell has gone missing, and his colleague Dr. Victor Falco speaks his concern for Rockwell's safety. April believes that the Krang kidnapped Rockwell and suggests that they all go and investigate. However, Don agrees and ejects his brothers from coming along based on one of the answers from his own diagram. Oh, Donatello, you shrewd and clever turtle. Anyway, at Rockwell's lab, Donnie and April discover that his place may have been a neurological study for animals, and a huge cage was busted open for something to get out. Pondering on that display, the two discover a canister of mutagen in the doctor's desk drawer. A shadow emerges out to try and attack Donnie, but he counters by placing the villain in a submissive pin. April turns on the lights, and the man reveals himself as Dr. Falco, Rockwell's colleague. Falco explains that Rockwell paid the Krang to use the ooze for his experiments on neurological science, and what the scientist was using was a monkey as his guinea pig. This leaves many questions on where this man was taken, and the two set out to try and find them. But the search is stopped when a mutated monkey comes out of nowhere and picks a fight with Donnie, in which Don gets his shell smacked into a bruised pulp. Ouch! The monkey grasps April only to hesitate when he sees her appearance. Now, if he knows her and her father, then that may be a mystery right there. Foreshadowing anyone? The mutant monkey escapes, and April brings back Donnie to the sewer lair so that he can recuperate his injuries. April explains this to Leo and the others, and they settle Donnie on the couch to rest. This turns out that Leo, Raph, and Mikey want to stare at Donnie and laugh at him for getting beaten up by a lab monkey. Their monkey puns are put to a close when April accuses them for making fun of their brother because of his injury. Mikey insists that the injuries weren't the reason, but the fact that Donnie was defeated by a monkey was what caught them laughing. Sometime later, after healing up, Donatello wonders how an intelligent fighter like him was easily defeated by something that was insanely mindless. Splinter comes over to tell his son that he must locate the space between thought and mindlessness to counter back against both factions whenever he fights back. April learns more of what Rockwell was experimenting on, and it turns out that the doctor wanted to capture the mutagenic essence of the brain to inject into himself to embed the gift of psychokinesis. Leo feels that it is time to locate the monkey and try to stop him from being captured for that purpose. In response to this, Raph suggests that they would need to stay in contact so they can reduce the search efforts, and Donnie shows them a new invention that is supposed to be their own version of the iPhone, the T-Phone. God, shameless plugging of Apple is what Nickelodeon is doing right now. Now, I'm not mad or anything, but it was done with the teapot already. As April and the Turtles chase down the mutant, they succeed in subduing it, where April comes to the realization that the monkey is Dr. Rockwell. Thus, the Turtles bring him back to Falco so that he can give his mutated colleague some home comfort. After a successful mission, the five go back to the sewer lair to eat pizza, to where Donnie discovers official notes from Dr. Rockwell's jump drive, and the notes state that he never had a monkey to begin with. But the experiments were executed with Rockwell using samples of monkey DNA. Donatello concludes that no monkeys were in that cage, as it was Dr. Rockwell who was in it, and Falco was using him to commence his own experiment to obtain psychic powers. This turns out to be true, as they arrive back at the lab to discover that Falco has the ability to read people's minds before they say or act on their own accord. Raph and Leo try to fight, but they are easily beaten down by the deranged doctor. Mikey is the next to go, after he struggles to figure out how to not use his brain while fighting. What? You just showed us that you could, Mikey! What happened to you? Donnie is the only one left, and he summons his might to try and balance the realm between thought and mindlessness. This proves successful, and Donnie manages to take down Falco with no thought whatsoever. Falco is defeated, he escapes, and the turtles free Rockwell to roam free and to hide himself from Falco ever capturing him again. Back at the sewers, Splinter is fascinated at April's camaraderie with his students, and he gives April the honor to be trained as a kunoichi, a female ninja to be exact. At the end, Donnie succeeds in impressing April with help from his chart, and Raph is still speechless at his brother's stubborn motive. And with that, episode 7 comes to an end. Whew, that was a mouthful. I would say that the basis of what was shown constructed itself as a very thorough and thought-out plot. Hence, that was definitely the highlight of this episode. The narrative had good polish, even though it may have come in as a very predictable outcome of who the bad guy really was. As far as Donnie and April's dynamic went, I was more impressed with what went on between them, and it didn't turn out to be very sour. Donnie's crush really didn't try to kick in, as he kept his cool and acted as a friend more than a creep. Plus, the episode ended off really well with setting us up for April to eventually train herself to be a ninja like the Turtles, and I am ready to see how much of an asset she is to her friends like she was in the 2003 series. I'm not saying that she wasn't in the original cartoon, but she ended up being more of a damsel in distress throughout the whole show. Whether if this means that we'll see her more often or not is only left up to speculation, but I assume that we will. Another excellent showcase in the episode was Michelangelo and his obsession over the T-phone because of them constantly playing mobile gaming than paying attention to serious circumstances. I knew Mikey wasn't truly a hardcore gamer. Or is he? Those moments of him and his mindless shenanigans only added more charm to make the episode balance itself from being either too light or too dark in tone. Finally, the last thing that was a nice touch was Falco injecting the mutagen from the monkey's brain into his own brain to obtain psychic powers. These are moments like this and the teapot fiasco to where the writers try newer things than just pouring the ooze on random victims to mutate them. It's a very old process, and it is good to see that this show is experimenting with newer ideas than just recycling the same ideas over and over again. As far as everything else, it was great. I really didn't find anything that made the episode very questionable, to be honest. Now, I am going to be honest with you here. Episode 7 should have been last week's episode, where I found Episode 6 to be more filler rather than canon. It may be canon, but those awkward moments were completely unnecessary as I felt that Donatello achieved full circle with his character development this time around. I can't really speak more highly about this story arc. I have to give Episode 7 a 9 out of 10. A complete reversal from bad to good in a week's time just proved that there is hope for some things to actually work out for the better. Alrighty, that concludes my review on this shell of a good episode. Haha, see what I did there? Tune in next week for my take on the next installment of the show where the episode is called Never Say Zever. Oh boy, a return of that street punk? Does this mean that he'll be transformed into Fish Face as Leo has to save a noodle shop owner from being held as one of Zever's hostages? That might be, and Leo is in for his character development next time. Anyway, be sure to rate, favorite, and comment on this video to notify me of your own thoughts, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more content coming from me in the future. This is RPG signing off, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and Jeffrey Combs from DC Animated Universe fame voicing Victor Falco was another great touch as well. I give that another 2 thumbs up.
I guess you're good for something. Turtle power.